Hey guys, welcome to another week of the Mac Outdoors podcast with Mia and Lea. This week we'll be discussing pack trips, camping, scouting, and wildlife. Stay tuned.
This summer, whether you're at the range or in the field, WSI Sports' Hypertech bamboo tanks, tees, and leggings will have you covered. Visit WSISports.com and use Leah's affiliate code LLCO10 for 10% off your purchase. All products are proudly made in the USA. WSI is bringing back pride in American-made clothing. Again, that code is LLCO10 for 10% off your order at WSISports.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Mac Outdoors podcast, where a dynamic mother-daughter duo share their adventures, tips, and advice. I am Mia, and I'll be accompanied by the one and only daughter, Lea. It is time to get to outdoors, hunt, shoot, and spend time with family and friends. Let's get this show on the road.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are so excited that you have tuned in this week. Last week we talked about our busy weekends going to Dallas and Shreveport for a bunch of events. But this week we are planning some summer trips, and we wanted to share them with you.
Yeah, so this week we've got some camping/scouting missions going on, and basically camping is scouting for us. We kind of combine the two into one, so I don't know which one you want to call it, but we talked to you about some camping gear and such in the past two episodes.
Yes.
But we wanted to share some more things about camping and getting outside, because it's summertime, and that means it's a great time to enjoy the great outdoors. So Lea, why don't we tell people about one of your favorite things? Hiking.
Good one. I'm not a big fan of hiking. I would much rather ride my horse on all our scouting/camping missions. But hiking is a really good way to get outdoors, and I know a lot of people travel here to hike the awesome trails that we have here in Colorado.
Yeah, if you are looking for a destination, a place to go, Colorado should be at the top of your list if you haven't already been here. We have great views, a lot of scenery, lakes, mountains, streams, prairies, plains, high deserts, mesas, all of it.
Yes.
But in our area, we live in Southwest Colorado, and really we have some awesome trails in the La Plata County area and the Archuleta County area. And you can get up there in the high country, in wilderness, and just see amazing things. And since Leah's been a little tyke, she talked about how she had great camping gear and stuff on her trip when we were in the last episode. She chatted about that, but it's partly because she's been camping since she was just a little one. Lea, why don't you tell some of the listeners about some of your most memorable experiences camping? Do you have some good stories from when you were a little kid?
Well, when I was little, I don't really remember a lot of our trips, but I do remember one pack trip that we did with one of my best friends and her family. It was her and her brother, mom and dad, and it was me, my mom, and stepdad, and we all packed up, and it was a pretty long ride. Not too far though, but I always remember that my friend's dad, he hiked the whole trail while the rest of us rode. So he waited for us to go, and then he jogged the trail actually.
Yeah. And that's partly because he's just a fitness buff. I mean, he runs every day, miles and miles. And he also has a bad back, so he didn't want to sit on the horse. Their family has horses, and he didn't want to sit in the saddle. He'd rather run. So that was his choice. And one of the things about that trip, and any trip if you're coming to the mountains, is those kind of trips are just awesome and memorable for a whole family. So Lea, tell our listeners a little bit more about the pack trip.
Well, we had camp all set up, and then me and my friend and her mom were going out on a little adventure by ourselves, and My friend was actually into jumping horses. She competed in that. And so we're out there, and of course in the woods there's down trees everywhere. Well, there was open meadows with down trees, and she's like, let's jump the horses over these logs. And I had never really done that. I mean, I don't make my horse jump over a log or anything
our goal
like that.
is usually to make our horses walk over logs because we don't want any guests getting bucked off or anything crazy.
Yeah, so that was... And I got my horse to do it, and it was actually a lot of fun. But the funniest part was my horse and my friend's mom's horse would jump over him. And my best friend, her horse was a show horse, and she would not jump these big logs. She would just step over them. And then on the way back to the camp, her horse jumped over this little bitty twig, like barely, like the smallest little branch. She jumped it, and that was just the funniest thing.
That does sound funny. It sounds like maybe she was a little too trained for the arena and didn't know what to do in the wide open space or something.
Pretty pampered horse that was out in the woods.
Too funny. One of my memories from that trip was actually the food, because since it was two families, we both had different ideas of camp food, and we have our old standbys, and I think we grilled burgers and maybe hot dogs and stuff like that. I don't really remember the food that we brought. What I remember was the food that our friends brought, because they are like gourmet chefs, and who ever thought that you could eat so well up at a high country camp? But we had asparagus and bruschetta, and we had just some awesome food. I mean, it was delicious, and it was a lot of fun to kind of take turns and make meals. And then I also remember you kids having some fun in the camp chairs around the campfire.
Yes. Of course, any kid, I feel like, that sits in a chair has to tilt back in it. And we were joking around, tilting in them. And my friend, she has a younger brother, and we were all tilting back in our chairs, just joking around, talking. And he was getting a little crazy in his chair, and he kicked just right and flipped over. Well, where the chairs were was kind of where we had the horses tied up the day, like, to go ride. And he fell backwards into a big horse turd behind him.
Oh, yuck.
And we just laughed so hard. Because what are the odds of him doing that? Then we almost flipped our chairs over because we were laughing so hard.
Yeah, so that was pretty crazy. The fortunate thing at that camp was there also was a creek nearby, so he was able to rinse off. But also another thing when you're up camping, something really fun is to take your fly rods or your fishing poles and go fish. And at that camp, there were some brookies in the little creek, so it's always fun to catch some fish. We usually catch and release, but I know some people like to eat them. Another thing that was fun was just looking at wildlife. I know actually the kids found in a nearby area, they found a dead fawn. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, we did actually. We found actually the whole family. It was the mom deer and 2 baby fawns when we were exploring up there. And it was really sad to see them. She must have had a hard time having twins, because I know that's pretty rare, and especially up in the high country like that.
Because I kind of remember they weren't like chewed on, nothing like that. They just were dead, and so that was interesting. But the things that you discover when you're in the outdoors, it's actually, educational, and like that one was just a mystery.
Yeah.
But it's still amazing to see out in the woods. What other things, Leah?
I know last year on our pack trip, we saw a bunch of different types of wildlife. We actually set up camp kind of in the trees along the meadow, and there were deer coming right into our camp. Obviously the other campers that have stayed up there feed them, because they weren't scared at all, and they were just looking for handouts pretty much.
Yeah, and that actually, I mean, I know some people would think that that's pretty cool, but actually to me that was really disheartening, because it does show that campers are feeding them like they're pets. And that's really not what you want to do with wildlife. I mean, yeah, it was kind of cool to be that close to a deer where we possibly could have fed them, but in reality, it's really not a good thing. You don't want them to get that comfortable with human interaction, and so that was one thing. We did see a lot of deer, but we also we remembered our binoculars and our cameras.
Yes.
And I think, I don't know, what was the coolest one? It's a toss-up from that camp. And this camp that we're talking about is actually up by Emerald Lake, and that is north of Bayfield in Colorado. It's really beautiful. You can hike to it. We rode our horses, but it's a long hike. You definitely want to spend the night if you're going to hike in on foot, because it's quite a ways in there.
Yes.
But it was really beautiful. And so from camp, we kind of set up and we were just glassing. And what was your favorite?
I don't know. I have to say the bighorn sheep was my favorite just because I was the one that spotted them first. Because I was so determined that I was going to see a bighorn sheep while I was there. And I just laid there. Of course, where we were camped, we're literally right below these cliffs. So I had to lay down just to look at the top.
Yeah, she was laying on her back with her head on her backpack looking up.
And we glassed and glassed, and I was like, I know I'm going to see one. And sure enough, I spotted a whole herd of them, and it was so cool. I shared pictures on my social media, but they were just skylined up there, and 2 actually pretty nice rams.
Yeah, there were some nice rams with big, I'm not sure if there was full curl. Was there a full curl?
I think there was one that was pretty close.
Darn close, huh? A lot of mass on those. And they were silhouetted, and that's what was really, really cool. It
was so pretty. And it was in the afternoon, so the sun was setting. It was really cool. But the toss-up was between those and a beautiful bear that we saw.
Yeah, and I am fascinated with bears. I love bear hunting. I love photographing bears. Anything about them, I really enjoy it. But that bear was a huge bear, and it down in our area, what we have are black bears, and black bears generally are not very aggressive, but this one was quite a distance away, so we really weren't worried about that. But it had blonde tips on its back. It was very light colored, and then its color phase went down to black on its feet, and it was just gorgeous bear.
Yes, it was. It had the ombre hair that everyone likes.
Right? There you go. That one, we've hunted bears and seen a lot of bears, and I suppose I've seen some that were more blonde than that one, but the color phase, and as you call it, the ombre, that just the transition of colors was gorgeous, I thought. So that was pretty cool to see that bear. And speaking of bears, I have a lot of friends that are terrified of camping because they're worried about bears. And as I mentioned, in our area, generally the black bears are non-aggressive. If you run into a sow with cubs, you might have an issue. Usually they'll clack their teeth at you and you just need to retreat, get away from there. Speaking of that, Leah, did you see that Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation released the story about Todd Orr's experience and his surviving a double bear attack? Did you see that?
Yes, I did. I remember actually seeing the first video that he shared of getting attacked, and I thought it was actually really cool to see the follow-up video just to know like exactly what happened. Yeah. Because at first it's like, how did this guy like just get mauled by a bear?
And that was really interesting because I saw that also when he first, what happened, if any of our listeners aren't familiar with it, is Todd Orr was attacked by a bear, and how we all recognized it was back last October. He did like a selfie video on Facebook right after the attack, and he's got blood all over him, a gash on the side of his head, and he's telling all his friends on Facebook that he got attacked by a bear. It was kind of weird, but just like, I'm not sure. Do you think you would have done that? Like, had the sense to share a video? Because I don't think I would be on social media if I were attacked by a bear.
You know, I might have with the injuries that he actually had. Like, it tore all the tendons in his arm and broke his arm and everything. And, like, you could see all the stuff hanging out. Like, I probably would have at least taken a picture, maybe, but I don't really want to find out what I would do.
Right. Right. I suppose we can all speculate what we would do. The follow-up, like you said, that was really interesting to see and hear the details of everything that happened. He didn't just get attacked, he got attacked twice. And so we'll put a link in the show notes for any of you who haven't seen this video yet. You can watch the YouTube video. So we'll put a link down there. And maybe you can comment on our social sites or send us an email or a message and let us know your thoughts on this video as well as the attack. Like, what would you do? I mean, if a bear came at you, and this is a grizzly bear, not a black bear. He was attacked by a grizzly. What do you think you would do? I mean...
God. Well, I'm giving away hints from the video, but he said he did have a handgun with him, but he is a Forest Service officer, and he was trained to use bear spray. So he sees this bear charging him and sprays it with bear spray. But I compared it to self-defense. If you were getting attacked by a person, if you saw someone was actually after you and you had a handgun with you, I'm pretty sure I would just put the pepper spray or bear spray away and use my handgun.
Yeah. And as we said, it's hard to say what you actually would do. I mean, what would you do?
Well, and if you would even have time, I know, like, you could just be like, oh my gosh, kind of like how we said in one of our bow fishing episodes that we saw a pike and we're just like, oh my gosh, look, and never shot at it. So I feel like it would kind of be the same thing. It's like, oh my God, this bear is actually running at me.
Right.
That would be a scary thing to go through.
Definitely would be pretty darn scary. And so black bears versus grizzly bears, bears are related, but they're different, live in different areas. We don't have grizzly bears down here in Southwest Colorado. So if you're going to come and camp, you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about a grizzly attack, which is a great thing. So you can have peace of mind out there. And if you are nervous, as Leah said, you could still carry bear spray. You can carry a handgun for self-defense. You do have to obey Colorado's, concealed carry laws and stuff like that. So that's something to think of. But in camping in Colorado, there's also a lot of other wildlife you can see. We don't want to make anybody terrified of bears, but something that we generally see when you're up, if you want to go camp on the Continental Divide, which is over there, and I was going to say in Archuleta County, but it's actually in Mineral County. So where the trailhead is on top of Wolf Creek Pass. But if you want to go up there, you have the opportunity again to maybe see some bighorn sheep. There's also moose up there. In Colorado, we have Shiras moose, and then deer, elk, and of course all kinds of small game and birds too.
Yes, especially where we hunt, which is also a huge place for hikers in the summer. There are ptarmigan. I think I talked about shooting those in the last episode. And they are just cool birds to see. And there's also like whistle pigs. And those are always funny to see them like screaming. I know I actually went on a drive over where we do elk hunt. I drove over and I saw so many of them on the side of the road. And so I was like, oh, those little things. They're so pretty, though.
They are. They're really pretty. They have some nice pelts.
They're a lot bigger than you expect. Like,
right.
I always think, like, oh, they're going to be, like, size of a squirrel. And they're, like, the size of, like, our little rat terrier. Like, they're pretty big.
I think they're probably bigger than yours.
Probably.
Closer to the corgi size.
Yeah. So. And I know some places that you would probably see some mountain goats.
Oh, yeah. There are good places. Actually, in La Plata County, there's some great places to see mountain goats. I'm not sure over there in Mineral County, are there mountain goats? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I've never seen any over there. What Leah and I have seen up there on Wolf Creek are the lynx, because Colorado reintroduced the lynx, I don't know, over a decade ago, and so you do have the chance to see those, and they're pretty cool looking.
Yes, they're so pretty. They're so majestic. Like, it was amazing to see them. And there's actually been a lot of sightings in La Plata County as well.
Yep.
Everywhere. So it's kind of cool to see them, that they're actually living and making, I don't know, they're growing the population.
Yeah, they're making a good comeback, and they've adapted to the area really well. They're not native to Colorado, but they did introduce them. Yes. Another thing is, if you head up north of Pagosa Springs to Williams Lake, there's really pretty waterfalls all over the Southwest. There's really pretty waterfalls, but there's an ice cave up there, and you can hike to the ice cave. There's also natural hot springs where you can go and soak in the hot springs. And if you don't like the muddy, sit in the mud and natural hot springs, we also have hot springs that are natural, but it's filtered a little better, so you don't have algae or anything floating with you. We have those right downtown in Pagosa Springs, and they are really great. We actually took our family there during Leah's graduation because everybody loves to sit in the springs.
Yes.
The natural healing waters. And there's actually hot springs in Ouray as well. And Ouray is north of Durango and past Silverton.
Over Red Mountain, which is also a beautiful drive. I just went over it yesterday, and it was just amazing to drive over and see. What's really cool is the rocks are red. It's not just like how normal, just brown, dull.
Right.
They're just oxidized, as I learned in school. So they're really pretty. There's snow still up there, and then the trees are all green, and you have the red mountains. And
and that's another place where you have a chance of seeing bighorn sheep. I actually was driving across there one time to a conference, and there were 3 ewes, like, right on the side of the cliff, right beside the road.
They all love the road. I remember a couple of my friends sharing driving over that they just were chilling in the middle of the road.
Yeah. So if you do come visit, also watch out for wildlife, because we have a lot of wildlife crossing the roads. And actually, the Denver News this week shared a car got totaled. They hit an elk over there on I-25. So I-25 is on the other side. We're not talking about that side of the state too much. It's kind of the east and the west, and we live in God's country, and I don't know what you want to call that. Just teasing to our friends that live over there.
Different kind of pretty out there for sure, though.
Yeah.
I know from antelope hunting. It's so pretty during that time of year.
It is gorgeous over there.
Talking about people hitting elk and deer, while I was at my conference, I was talking to some other girls that were actually from Colorado as well, and they were talking about they had a friend that was from Maine, and of course they have moose up there, and she said that they learned in driving that if you see a moose to speed up, because if you go fast enough, it'll go over your car and it won't go through your windshield.
Oh my God.
It's like, how scary would that be to see this giant moose and you're like speeding up to like go through its legs? And like, oh my gosh, that'd be so scary.
Now, that seems to me like that must be a tip for people who have little cars, not people that have big one-ton trucks like us.
Maybe not for that, but I just thought that was crazy that they were actually like, if you see a moose, speed up. Like,
I would.
Jeez,
I've never heard of that, so learn something new today. I hope our listeners learn something new as well.
If you have the guts to do it, I guess, because I don't know if I would be wanting to speed up in a little car in this giant. Moose are huge, like. They're not just like a little deer, and even an elk, they make elk look small, so.
Right.
Like, that's kind of scary to be speeding up, but.
Yeah. You know, another thing, we were talking about bears, and I don't know, to you, our listeners, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation also really had a press release out that the Yellowstone grizzlies have been delisted. So that means their populations have increased so much that the feds are turning over the management of the grizzly bears to the states. So the state of Wyoming and Montana, and is Yellowstone and Idaho as well, those states will be able to manage the grizzly bears. So they'll have the say-so in how many can be hunted or not hunted and so forth. So that's a good tidbit of news, and I'm sure we have a lot of friends that are pretty happy about that, because the grizzly bears, I know they have done some damage on elk and moose populations, and I would imagine deer, but people are really ready to hunt them because they have gotten so prolific in Yellowstone. So there's your news, and if any of you get the opportunity to hunt there, let us know. I'd love to hear some stories about it.
I wish I could. I mean, I'm going up there to live. I know after reading that bear attack from that guy, and he was in Montana, and I gathered like around Bozeman from his video, which is not too far from where I'm going to school, and so of course I'm going to be in the woods, so now I have to be extra prepared.
Yeah, something
like,
else to be.
Ooh.
Oh, Mom can worry more now.
Yeah. Might get attacked by a grizz, but
oh no, hopefully not, and hopefully, hopefully not.
Yeah, no.
Let's not find out about that.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen those? I know I was going through one of our local stores, and they have bear bells. Have you seen those?
I haven't seen those here in town, but I did see those last summer. We took a road trip, and we went all the way up to Kalispell, Montana, and to Glacier National Park and so forth. But we stopped for a day in Cody, Wyoming, and there was a little gift shop where we stayed, and they had bear bells.
They sell them in Walmart.
Here?
I saw them in Walmart here last year, and I was like, a bear bell? I'm like, okay, like ringing the dinner bell, here I am.
I've heard those stories that don't wear the bells because the bears know you're there, and wear the bells so the bears know you're there so they run. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Bears are crazy.
You don't want to startle a bear. So, to you, our listeners, we'd love to hear some stories. Actually, we have a story. I didn't even think of this till just now, but a couple years ago while Leah and I were at SHOT Show, we had a ton of assignments, and SHOT Show is in Las Vegas in January, and it's a week-long trade show, and it's quite exhausting. And a lot of our friends are like, oh, Vegas, party, blah, blah, blah. Well, we had a lot of assignments and a lot of work to do, and so to kind of brighten our day, and actually just general everyday life to brighten our days.
Yes.
If we see dogs, it's like, hi, dog. And so dogs always make us smile, but we set our mission. And do you remember that? We had the mission of finding dogs. And then do you remember the grizzly bear one?
Yes, there were so many amazing people with dogs, and they were so open to letting us. Only one person was like, no, I don't want to talk. But this one guy that we talked to, he was actually from Montana, and I think he was a veteran as well.
Yeah. And so what these were, you guys, these were service dogs. People at SHOT Show had their service dogs with them. And obviously you don't stop and pet them. But this one guy, yes, he was a veteran, and he was from Montana.
From Montana, and he got attacked by a bear. And he had the service dog because he was traumatized from getting attacked by this bear. And that's why we were saying, like, it was weird that this other guy in his video, that he just seemed so chill about it. And he even said he went back in the woods the next month or something.
It hasn't even been a year yet.
Yeah, he's already like out in the woods again. Yeah. He even went back to the place where he got attacked. Whereas like this guy, he said he won't even go in the woods anymore because he got attacked by this bear. And it's like, well, there's two different looks on it. Yeah,
and I guess maybe for Todd Orr, it's more like if you get bucked off the horse, get back in the saddle. Maybe it's kind of that sort of deal. I don't know, because I guess different people handle things in different ways. But that was interesting, a different point of view from bear attack. And so here we are dwelling on bear attacks, but it's something that really does make you think. And I guess there is a lot of curiosity about it because it's always in the back of your mind. You're like, what would I do? What would I do during archery elk season if a charging bull comes straight at me and I see his antlers beside my head? And and then if you didn't shoot him, there's always that scenario. What should I have done? What would I have done? What could I have done?
Yes. I feel like all of it's the same. Like I said, like the same with personal defense, actual human on human, like that. I feel like it's the same thing, getting attacked by a bear or even like a mountain lion. Like you're always gonna plan like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this and this, but when the time actually comes, like I have to refer back to my trip to Dallas. I heard from Christy McMains. She had an awesome little speech to put together for the Young Women's Leadership Summit, and she always carried a handgun with her, but she got attacked and was in her car. So she was pinned down under this guy, and so obviously you don't ever, practice, if I was pinned down and could barely reach my handgun, stuff like that. So I kind of, relate them back and forth. I don't think you're ever fully prepared to be attacked.
That's partly why they say to take different handgun self-defense courses from different instructors, because you can never be fully prepared for every scenario, because what they're doing in the classes, like when you went to gun sight, and if you guys want to listen to an episode about that, we'll put a link in the show notes as well. But when she went to gun sight, they prepared her for certain instances and, hostage scenarios and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But if you're on hand to hand and somebody jumps on you, then what do you do? And there are classes that teach you what to do for that also. And as far as a bear attack, yeah.
You're on your own.
Yeah. But I think that's why Lea keeps referring back to that scenario, because she's been through classes. She's been through these, these handgun defense classes. So she's got that in her mind because she's had training in that. And I think that's good. I think it's a good thing so that you're a little more prepared than somebody who hasn't taken a class like that. A lot of us, you see on TV oh, that happened and this is what I would do, but you don't know till you're actually in the scenario. So this weekend, we are headed to the high country. We're headed to the mountains, and we're going to go scout. I, unfortunately, didn't draw a ton of tags this year, but I will be doing some archery elk hunting, and I drew my bear tag since we're talking about bears. And poor Lea, she didn't draw anything because she's going to be headed off to school, and we didn't want to draw a tag and have you not be able to come hunt.
Yeah, I've had a couple friends that actually drew tags, and they went to school in Oregon, far away from Southwest Colorado, and they ended up not being able to make it back and to hunt. And I didn't want to have to worry about any of that, but I did get an archery antelope tag because that's before I leave to go to school. So I will probably go scout there, but this week I can't go to the high country because I need to work, which is no fun.
Welcome to the big kid life.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. So you guys, let us know, what kind of hunts do you have this fall? Are you going to be out scouting, and do you kind of day scout, or do you go camp when you scout? What kind of things are you doing? Have you been to Colorado? Tell us about your trips if you have, and what kind of cool places you've been to or what you've seen. Let us know all of that. We'd love to hear about it. We look forward to chatting with you next week. Maybe we'll have some cool stories from the high country. Well, at least from me, since Lea said she's not going to go with us. Sorry, Lea. Lea can tell you about some cool places to shop in downtown Durango.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening, guys. And we hope that you'll come back next week. Don't forget to subscribe and share our episodes with your friends. And keep coming back. Bye.